just noticing any emotional response or any body response to phrases or images or, whatever that may be. Vajravada's question. The student Brahmin Vajravada spoke next. I have come, he said, to ask a question. Thirst breaker, wishless, free and wise, beyond time and home, life and pleasure. Please, ocean crosser, for all the different people who have come from different places to listen to your words. Tell us about the way that you have found and known. The master replied, there is in taking things a thirst, a clinging, a grasping. You must lose it. You must lose it altogether, above, below, around, and within. It makes no difference what it is you are grasping at. When someone grasps, Mara stands beside them. Therefore, the monks, realizing this, should not grasp at anything, being mindful. They should see the beings that are creatures of attachment as tied to the power of death. Jatukini's question. Then the Brahmin student Jatukini spoke. I had heard, he said, that there was an ocean crosser, a hero, desiring the desireless. And so I have come to ask a question of this man without desire. Tell me this, eye of instant seeing knowing. What is the state of peace? Please explain it to me as it really is. You, Master, rule desire and pleasure, like the sun with heat and light, rules and controls the earth. I have only a little understanding, sir, and you are a globe full of wisdom. Tell me how to find and know the way of giving up this world of births and agings. The Buddha replied to Jatukini, lose the greed for pleasure. See how letting go of the world is peacefulness. There is nothing that you need hold on to, and there is nothing that you need push away. Dry up the remains of your past and have nothing for your future. If you do not cling to the present, Then you can go from place to place in peace. There is a greed that fixes on the individual body-mind. When that greed has completely gone, then, Brahmin, there will be no more inner poison drives, without which you are immune from death. The perceiver's questions. Then the Brahmin student Upasiva asked a question. Man of Shakya, he said, it is not possible for me to cross the massive ocean alone and without help. You are the eye that sees everything. Please tell me, what can I use to help me across the ocean? The master told Upasiva, use these two things to help you cross the ocean. The perception of no thingness and the awareness that there is nothing. Give up sense pleasures and be free from doubts. So you will begin to see and to long for an end to craving. Master, said Upasiva, when a man is free from attachment to all pleasures and depends on nothingness, and everything else he lets go, he is freed in the supreme freedom from perception. But will he permanently be there and not return again? When a man is free, said the Buddha, from all sense pleasures and depends on nothingness, he is free in the supreme freedom from perception. He will stay there and not return again. Master, you have the eye that sees everything, said Upasiva. If this man stays many years in this state without returning, will be cooled and freed there itself, say whether consciousness will still exist for such a person. It is like a flame struck by a sudden gust of wind, said the Buddha. In a flash it has gone out, and nothing more can be known about it. It is the same with a wise man freed from mental existence. In a flash he has gone out, and nothing more can be known about him. Please explain this to me clearly, sir, said Upasiva. You, a wise man, know precisely the way these things work. Has the man disappeared? Does he simply not exist? Or is he in some state of perpetual well-being? When a person has gone out, then there is nothing by which you can measure them. That by which they can be talked about is no longer there for them. You cannot say that they do not exist. When all ways of being, all phenomena are removed, then all ways of description have also been removed. So Yeah, so yesterday we looked more at the sort of the story and the structure, the Brahmin's sort of passionate existential questions, and then the Buddha's responses. And today we're going to look in more detail at some of the things that the Buddha says. What's he actually proposing to the Brahmins? And there are 16 of these dialogues, and each one is deeply profound. And there's umpteen themes that we could have picked out, so I'm just going with some of them. I probably still have a bit too much, but never mind. Okay, so we're going to start off with Kappa, which is the one that I haven't just read, but it was the one in the puja last night. And Kappa's lovely. So Kappa says, "Sir, there are people stuck midstream in the terror and the fear of the rush of the river of being, and death and decay overwhelm them. For their sakes, sir, tell me where to find an island. Tell me where there is solid ground, beyond the reach of all this pain." "Kappa," said the master, "for the sake of those people stuck in the middle of the river of being, overwhelmed by death and decay, I will tell you where to find solid ground. There is an island you cannot go beyond. It is a place of no thingness, a place of non-possession and non-attachment. It is the total end of death and decay. And this is why I call it Nibbana, the extinguished, the cool. There are people who in mindfulness have realized this and are completely cooled here and now. They do not become slaves, working for Mara, for death. They cannot fall into his power." So I think the first thing that I really love about Kappa's dialogue is what I was saying yesterday about how there's no explicit metta mentioned. So the Buddha doesn't mention metta from start to finish of these dialogues. But to me, they are imbued with the essence of compassion. And you can hear, it in the questions. So, Kappa saying, he's not saying, show me where I can escape death and decay, show me where I can escape suffering. He's saying, sir, there are people stuck midstream in the terror and the fear of the rush of the river of being, and death and decay overwhelm them. For their sake, sir, tell me where to find an island. Tell me where to find solid ground beyond the reach of all this pain. To me, that's just somebody, watching the news and seeing Syrian refugees, or seeing, war-torn countries in Africa, or even just walking down the street and seeing homeless people on the street, and just saying, they're stuck in the middle of the rush of the river of being. For their sake, sir, tell me. So just this voice of deep compassion. And all these Brahmins, they are serious practitioners in their own right for many years, and teachers in their own right. So they're coming from their own well of compassion. And then the Buddha, he doesn't say anything about compassion, but to me, it's the voice, what's the tone that he says it in when he says, Kappa, for the sake of those people stuck in the middle of the river of being, I will tell you where to find solid ground. So, even when he's saying these kind of like, you must lose craving, that's how it is. It's like he's just saying that for me with such a voice of compassion. Like, if you embrace craving, you are embracing suffering. Don't do it. Just this voice of compassion speaking to us. And then I think the other thing that Kappa's question really brings out is this metaphor about crossing the flood or crossing the ocean. And of course, the whole chapter is called The Way to the Beyond. And I mean, this is a metaphor that runs right through the dialogues. The very first one is about, the rivers of desire are running. How can we cross over the flood? So this is a metaphor that the Brahmins are bringing. It's language they're using, and then the Buddha picks it up. So we've got this metaphor of water, and water as an obstacle, as a power, as an unstoppable force. I mean, recently some of us might even have been in flooding in this country, and certainly will have seen it on the news, just great kind of turbulent, dark floodwaters, kind of like going down the street of Hebden Bridge or wherever it might happen to have been. Sometimes sort of cars like bobbing down the road. So this is the image that's being used of the flood of death and decay, or the flood of craving. So it's this very kind of vivid image that would also have been very vivid to those people in ancient India at that time, of a flood that just suddenly arises, and you think you're just at home, you're just living your normal life, you're in your ordinary situation. And then the Dhammapada talks about the flood that sweeps away a sleeping village. It rains hundreds of miles away, and the flood just rushes through your life. So, of course, there's a physical flood, actually, in a way, that's itself change and impermanence and the forces of conditionality not under our control. But then both the Buddha and the Brahmins are using this flood in terms of floods of our emotions, or floods of compulsive thinking, or floods that just in terms of the mind that is out of control, that sweeps in and takes us where we don't want to go. And the flood of death and decay, illness happening at any time in our life, death happening possibly at any time in our life. So it's an image of danger. And then and sometimes it's an ocean. I mean, they wouldn't even have seen an ocean. They were miles from the sea. They're talking about something crossing the unknown, crossing something unknown to a place that is unknown. And crossing the river. And if you've seen the Ganges, it's massive. You can't even see the other side of it. So it's this image used for the spiritual life to, and it kind of evokes leaving a place of danger, but it's a journey with difficulty and hazard. So it's like this whole classic quest thing again, which I rather like. You're paddling your raft across, or whatever you're doing, and you're trying to find a place of safety, a place of refuge. So in Kappa's question, that's the island. You imagine you've got these sort of floodwaters spread out everywhere, but then there's a hill poking up, and you can get to that hill, you can be safe. Or if it's the vast Ganges, you've got to get to the other side of this huge river with its current. But there is a far shore, there's a place of safety that you can arrive at. So as I was saying yesterday, we are talking metaphor here. We're not talking about walking out and leaving behind the world, our lives, the people we love, whatever like that. And I think actually Kappa's question is very clear. For their sakes, sir, tell me where to find an island. So the idea is, we're finding the island, and then we're inviting other people to come to the island as well. Now, I can't remember who wrote this. It was in Shabda fairly recently, but somebody or other wrote in about somebody else, a friend of theirs, who'd gone to see Bhante, asking about, that bit where the Buddha talks about make for yourself an island that no flood can overwhelm. And sometimes it's translated as light, but Devan tells me that light is not correct and island is correct. But when whoever it was went to see Bhante and said, but we don't really talk much about becoming an island, making an island for yourself. And apparently Bhante said, well, we make ourselves islands so we can be a light for others, which I just thought was really beautiful. So then we get the Buddha's response about there is an island you cannot go beyond. Cool, I have notes and then I just don't look at them. Let's try the next page. Yes. So then in this translation, he's saying, this is Sadatissa, it is a place of nothingness or no-thingness, a place of non-possession and non-attachment, the total end of death and decay. Now, of course, I hear that and it just sounds completely nihilistic to me. A place of nothingness? I don't want to go to a place of nothingness. But actually, strangely enough, that isn't what the Buddha is trying to say. So what I want to unpack here is about the word that gets used for nothingness or no-thingness. Because I think when I read that and I think, well, the Buddha can't mean that, he must mean emptiness, he must mean shunyata, but actually he doesn't. Okay, so where I've got all this from is Bhikkhu Bodhi, okay? Bhikkhu Bodhi's notes, it's, his Sutta Nipata translation and commentaries, it's like that fat, and the notes are fab. Okay, so this word is actually a kinchana, and it means not having anything or without possessions. So kinchana, that means sort of something or anything. It means, something one owns, just, our stuff, kind of like stuff. And so for early Buddhism, what that came to mean was a burden or things that drag one down. And so it stopped meaning just like stuff you pack up in a suitcase. And it came to mean impediments of the mind or sort of obstacles of the mind. And then you also get a kinchana, which is more like the state of not having anything. The state of not having anything. So I'm going two ways at once. Yeah, so it's this idea of letting go of both outer and inner possessions, which will fit quite nicely for Padmasaki. So, there's this ideal of the wanderer, like with total renunciation, where you let go of your home, you let go of your possessions. But then there's also the possessions of the mind and the inner sense of ownership, the inner sense of like, there's a me in here, there's a fixed me here, and then there's stuff out there that has a real existence. And if I grab that stuff and I own it, it's my stuff, and that will make me safe and secure in the world. And I think it's such a thing actually when somebody dies, and it's like their physical body dying is one thing, and then there's all their stuff, and you have to decide what to do with their stuff. And it's almost like there's sort of more than one death. The point at which, like, their whole home and their possessions, I mean, I had to do this for my mother, and she loved her possessions, and she loved beautiful things, fabrics, crockery, you know, she had a very strong sense of beauty. And there were all these things that she'd surrounded herself with that were suddenly ownerless. And it's almost like they were her, and then they were kind of like having to spread out into the world, and it was like a sort of further dissolution of the person that my mother had been. So when we hear it is a place of nothingness or a place of no thingness, we're more hearing it is a place where the concept of a fixed sense of me that can own things and fixed objects out there that can give us security, that no longer makes sense. So this island, it's a place where we've completely let go of any sense of me, mine, and ownership. We've completely let go of relating to the world in terms of me grasping other. And one of the things that I really love about this is, like, so, you know, these dialogues, they're so much more about the goal than the path. You know, they're giving this sense of like what it is like to be an enlightened person. You know, can you imagine what that would be to have? I mean, you could also think of it as like everything is ours, but there's no sense of like individual ownership. I mean, actually, this is Marmaki. Marmaki, the wisdom of equality, who just gives with abundance. And she's called the mind maker because she makes everything hers. But what that means is there's no boundaries. There's nothing that's like, that's mine and that's yours. It's just everything is hers because it's the abundance of the whole universe. Everything that arises and passes, in a sense, can be ours and not ours. And so I was saying about this being much more about an evocation of the goal than the path. But to me, the implication of using this word akinchana for a description of nibbana, of awakening, is that generosity can also be a total path to awakening. Every time we ease up on like, oh, that's my car, I don't want somebody to borrow it. Or, I mean, I've got a real thing about hair clippers, actually. You know, every now and again on retreat, or, you know, retreats here, and somebody feels really inspired and they want to shave their head. And then a request comes over saying, are there any hair clippers that can be borrowed? And usually I'm the person with the hair clippers. And I'm like, it's like someone wants to borrow my toothbrush. And it's like, okay, so do I kind of go, well, actually, no, you know, it's sort of reasonable not to lend my hair clippers, or do I just go, well, actually, it's okay, you know, I can lend my hair clippers. And sometimes I do one, and sometimes I do the other. But you can see how actually generosity and just that easing up of this is mine, hard boundary. Can I step over that? You know, can I step over that softly? Can I open out here? That would lead to the island you cannot go beyond. You'll also notice it came up a lot at the start of Upasiva's questions about, he says, use these two things to help you cross the ocean, the perception of nothingness and the awareness that there is nothing. Those are this akinchana word. And just to say, so as you're not wondering how to write that down, I think Annabeth's just popped it up on Padlet, and I'll stick a notice on the board so you can know what that is if you're interested. Yes. And then the end of Kappa's dialogue, this just comes up again and again and again, where he's saying, people, if you reach this island, you won't become a slave working for Mara, for death. they cannot fall into his power. So you've got this idea about death and the deathless running through pretty much all dialogue. So I'm going to say something about that towards the end of the talk. Right, okay, so now we've got the Dravida. Oh, they're so gorgeous, these. I have come to ask a question, thirst breaker, wishless, free and wise beyond time and home, life and pleasure. Please, ocean crosser, for all the different people who have come from different places to listen to your words. Tell us about the way that you have found and known. So you've got the compassion coming through again, you know, for all the different people. You know, he's just saying, look, please just share this. Tell everyone. Yeah, really lovely. And then you get the Buddha's teachings straight down the line. There is in taking things a thirst, a clinging, a grasping. You must lose it. You must lose it altogether. Above, below, around and within. So, I mean, I'm a person that really likes clarity. And like sometimes when I read that, I just get this sort of clench in my stomach, like, no, I don't want to, I want to be able to grasp things, I want that to keep me safe. But also, he's just saying, and like I say, with this voice of complete compassion, this is how it is. As long as you are grasping a sense of you, and you're thinking that satisfaction and security are going to be found by grabbing things out there, what you are grabbing is suffering. And you need to realize that. Because of course, I don't realize that. I grab with the best of them. And anyway, right, this is me going like 5 ways at once in my head. Let's try not to go 5 ways. Yeah, so what I really like is it's so uncompromising, and he just says, well, this is the bottom line, like this is how it is. And then we need to find a way to work with that, but like there's no 2 ways about it. Because I think what I can do is I can hang on to a belief that somehow I can become fully and completely awakened, but I can still have all the stuff that makes me feel okay, and like I can have my cake and eat it. Like I want to be like the sort of me that I want to be, and I want to be like a sort of super nice person and really spiritual, and I want my car, and I want all the rest of it, and I want the security of that, and I want awakening. And the Buddha is just saying it's not going to work like that. Either it's letting go, or it's not letting go. Yeah, there was this Peanuts cartoon, Peanuts, Snoopy, that I saw many years ago, and it obviously made an impact. And I don't know if you're familiar with this, but it's all these little kids, and there's a character called Linus. Mm-hmm. And Linus always carries a security blanket. He never goes anywhere without a security blanket. And he has a really bossy elder sister whose name escapes me. It might be Maisie. What's it?
Lucy.
Lucy, there we go, Lucy. Yeah, very, very bossy elder sister who's always having a bit of a go at Linus. And Linus, in this cartoon, Linus is saying, yeah, no, it's fine, this security blanket. I'm just going to, one day I'm just going to let go of it. I'm not going to need it anymore. I'm just going to I can throw it away any time I like. I can throw it away just like this. And he throws it away. And Lucy's like, wow, no way. She's really impressed. And then as soon as she turns her back, Linus is running to grab the blanket before it can even touch the floor. Anyway, that's how I can feel about my stuff. And in a way, sometimes I think, well, I suppose it's this area around renunciation, because how much can we renounce while still physically having the house, car, sexual partner, beautiful clothes, beautiful crockery if you're my mum? You know, how much can we let go of those things while still outwardly possessing them? And how much do we need external renunciation? And now let's get on to the next bit. I do see there are issues. We're about to get onto them, okay? So then the Buddha says, yeah, this thirst, clinging, grasping, you must lose it altogether, above, below, around, and within. It makes no difference what it is you are grasping at. When someone grasps, Mara stands beside her. So again, the Buddha's just being very clear, and what he's bringing out there is it's not the things in themselves. There's nothing the matter with any of the objects or the people or even us as selves. It's the grasping that is the issue. That is what needs to be released, not necessarily the things. And of course, you know, the Buddha had his own realization around this, didn't he, when he had all this ascetic practice, following the path of the ascetic practitioner. And then he has that rose apple tree moment where he realizes that pleasure is not necessarily something to be afraid of. So what my emotional response is when I read this is like, I kind of have a bit of a double response. So I have one response which is like, this is truth. Like I just get this sort of truth response where it's like, and the beauty of that clarity where, you know, where the Buddha's just saying, this is how it is, let go. And I get this sort of heart opening where it's like, I really want to do it. And it makes me think of those lines about the Buddha saying, live a holy life that is as pure and perfect as a polished shell. And I just get this whole kind of like idealistic thing where it's like, yes, and I want to do it, you know, the way to the beyond, to, you know, Buzz Lightyear, to enlightenment and beyond, da, 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 da. And I just want to kind of go for it. And then I get another thing, which is like, and I can't do it. And also I've tried and it doesn't work. It's not as simple as that. And this is why I really like this start of a perceiver's questions, where it's like, you know, a perceiver is hearing all these responses and he just starts by saying, man of Shakya, it is not possible for me to cross this massive ocean alone and without help. Please tell me what I can use to help me cross this ocean. I can't do it. It's just so, I don't know, it's just so human. So why is letting go of craving not as straightforward as it might initially appear? I mean, that could just be a question for your groups, because I think there's an awful lot more responses to that than the ones I've kind of got here. But I mean, so first it's like we've got I should. Okay, a spiritual person, a good Buddhist should do this, therefore I should do that, therefore I'm going to do it. And then sooner or later it's like, well, we've left a load of ourselves behind somewhere else, and that will come back and bite us on the bum. So this is the whole kind of like premature renunciation scenario where it's like we try to do something and then actually we realize that realistically we're not there yet. So for instance, it's like, in a way, it's like I live at Taraloka, which I don't know. Anyhow, forget the living at Taraloka part, but basically part of living at Taraloka is like, I really like having a car, because if I have a car, I can go wherever I want, whenever I want, and I don't have to negotiate with another 8 people for the use of the community car. And it's like, in a way, the car is a supportive condition that means that I'm still really happy to be living at Taraloka after 12 years. And at the same time, there's a sort of gripping and a grasping. But it's like, well, when is it a supportive condition? And when is it some walls that are closing us in? Because I suppose the other example for me probably is when I moved to Taraloka, where and actually moving to a retreat centre does require quite a high level of renunciation. You have to let go of your home, you have to let go of your career, you have to let go of all your friends and your life set up wherever you are, and then you move to a retreat centre. And I did that quite early on when I'm meeting the Dharma, and people saying, "Oh, I'm not sure that's a good idea." And I have to say I was really unintegrated, and there has been fallout, and I've been having to bring the other parts of myself on side for the last 12 years, and it probably hasn't finished yet. And at the same time, it would be a shame not to take whatever the step is for us towards greater freedom, or out of whatever is keeping us small in our lives. It would be a shame not to take that step out of fear that we're not quite integrated enough, because actually there is fear in letting go of things. So it's a balancing act, when are things supportive conditions and when are they keeping us small? And it's not a one size fits all. It's like, what is the felt sense for us of our conditions? Yeah. When someone grasps, Mara stands beside them. I love that image. Therefore, the monks, realizing this, should not grasp at anything, being mindful. So that's the only instruction the Buddha gives about how to do this. He says, well, you let go of grasping. And then the instruction is, well, how do you do that? You're mindful. They should see the beings that are creatures of attachment as tied to the power of death. So again, death and the deathless. Okay, so Jatukini's question. And I'll leave the start, which is him being very poetic about, oh no, I can't. I had heard that there was an ocean crosser, a hero, desiring the desireless. I can't possibly leave out desiring the desireless. So it's like, how can we reroute our desire so that what we desire is the desireless? Such a beautiful phrase. Good old Sadatissa. Yes. But then I will jump to the Buddha's reply. So the Buddha says, he's got like sort of 3 verses here. So first, lose the greed for pleasure. See how letting go of the world is peacefulness. There is nothing that you need hold on to, and there is nothing that you need push away. So what he's pointing to here is a path of mindfulness or awareness. And it's like, initially I sort of thought the Buddha wasn't giving any path. He was just giving this sort of evocation of the goal. And then I read it a bit more closely and I realized it's like he keeps on saying, be mindful or see for yourself or bring awareness. And it's this whole thing where it's like, actually get closer to the experience of grasping and craving and notice, well, what does that actually feel like? Okay, I've got some more exciting Pali words, again from a note by Bhikkhu Bodhi. So Bhikkhu Bodhi talks about this word called aja or ajayati. So ajayati is to move, to tremble, or to shake. And aja is motion, disturbance, agitation, emotion. And apparently in the Sutta Nipata, this word is quite often used instead of tanha to denote craving. So it's like it's talking about craving as agitation. And so what Bhikkhu Bodhi says is what this is doing is like it's metaphorical. Rather than like the desire itself, it's talking about, well, what is the impact of craving on the mind? And actually craving is of the nature of tension. It's of the nature of disturbance or agitation or turbulence. And throughout the Sutta Nipata, quite often the Buddha or an Arahat is described as anaja, one without craving, but one without agitation, one without this turbulence, this disturbance of the mind. It's an epithet for the Buddha, for the awakened mind. So then coming back to this, the Buddha just saying again and again about mindfulness, awareness. It's like this pointer, kind of like, okay, so grasping is arising in our mind, craving is arising in our mind. My hair clippers, whatever it might be. Well, can we get closer? Can we get more intimate with that experience? Like, what is the felt sense of grasping? And when we get closer to that felt sense of grasping, actually what we feel is it's not very pleasant. We've got an idea that if we can keep this thing to ourselves or whatever, it's going to give us ease, security, relaxation. So in the text you'll see again and again there's what is the, Jatukani, what is the state of peace? And it's being contrasted with the state of agitation. So when we feel for ourselves, well, what is the suffering in craving? That felt sense of discomfort, of agitation, of turbulence. Actually, we'll want to let go of it. So this is the Buddha's instruction. See how letting go of the world is peacefulness. Because actually, until we're experiencing that again and again directly, we're not going to let go of things that we believe give us safety and security and peace. Of course we're not. It's only when we have that direct understanding that we'll want to let go. We'll start desiring the desireless. So next bit. Dry up the remains of your past and have nothing for your future. If you do not cling to the present, then you can go from place to place in peace. I must say, I hear these verses kind of as meditation instruction, actually. Like, notice, where is your mind? Past, present, or future? Grasping at something or not grasping at something? He's telling us how to work with the mind. And this dry up the remains of your past. And to me, this includes all the work of integration, all the messy psychological stuff that will just come up again and again as kind of unstoppable reactivity that just kind of emerges into our psyches until we've allowed it to process and we've allowed it to resolve. And then the last verse. There is a greed that fixes on the individual body-mind. When that greed has completely gone, then, Brahmin, there will be no more inner poison drives, without which you are immune from death. I find it very evocative, that kind of poison drives, the kleshas, the defilements, the the poisons of the mind that just sort of arise, and they do sort of poison your experience, don't they? They kind of make you feel ill when they arise. And then we've got this line, there is a greed that fixes on the individual body-mind. So he's coming to the nub of it. So we can have grasping for stuff, we can have grasping for sense pleasure, we can have grasping for people and things out there, and there is also a grasping on me. Me, here I am, this is how I am. And in a way, this is the, this is the ultimate grasping. This is the grasping where if we let go of this, there will be no more inner poison drives. So for me, the path here is spotting the selfing project, spotting when am I, if I'm going through my head about an annoying thing somebody else has done, usually what I'm also doing is I'm constructing myself as a person who does not do that annoying thing. There's a very strong sense of like, they're like that, but I'm like this. See, me like that, them like that. And just kind of spotting, oh, this is a greed that is clinging to a particular body mind. Bringing that clarity of recognition, this is what's happening. At this moment, I am creating self. And again, well, what's the felt sense of that? It's usually closing down, a sense of closing down, a sense of limitation, and there is a painfulness to it. And if we get closer to it, the less appealing that behavior becomes. I mean, it comes out of my mouth as well. I mean, I've been working quite a lot in the last couple of years on ranting less. So I think a big way I create myself is having very strong opinions about things. And I can sort of like hold forth for 10 minutes and nobody else has had a word in edgeways and they're probably not even particularly interested in it. I'm just kind of like, anyway, anyone that lives with me or has lived with me will know about this. And it was just, and partly I think I still can do it, but I probably do it a lot less than I used to. Partly it was people telling me how they experienced that. And partly it was me just getting a sense of like this sort of compulsive need to, like, I knew who I was if I was ranting and holding this big opinion, like, and a kind of sticky, and I'd usually do it when I was like tired or a bit overwhelmed or something like that. Just go into this whole big ranting thing. So where do we notice behaviours that shore up a sense of self? And I think there's also an area here around self-criticism and self-hate, because actually what that is rooted in is trying to always create a self that is the desired self, a marvellous me that never makes mistakes, or always has an intelligent thing to say, or is never late, or is always cool, calm, capable and competent. That's what I always want to be. And then what happens is then we fall off being that kind of like ideal, desired, marvellous me that we've got kind of some sort of projected image somewhere in the sky that we ought to be like that. And then we're not like that. And then we start going, oh, I'm so terrible because I just lost it in the middle of whatever it was I was doing. But actually what's going on there is, actually I could just let go of the marvellous me project. I used to live with Maitrisiddhi and she had a thing about letting go of Superwoman, the death of Superwoman. I thought it was such a good phrase, just letting go. And like going, oh yeah, well, I can just be a bit of a numpty. And that's how it is. And that's okay. Like, it doesn't have to be some sort of drama. So there's another implication here, which is actually this is the path of metta. I made a mistake a number of years ago at Taraloka that cost Taraloka £20,000. And it was completely not okay. It's just like, and I felt just really like awful about it, real bottomless pit. And I just had to go, okay, the only thing that can meet this is unconditional love. because it's just, anything that is conditional, no, it is not okay to make a mistake that's had that level of consequence. And all I could do was just keep on coming back to, like, okay, I really have to just turn towards unconditional love here. There's nothing else that can meet this situation. And so when we're in touch with metta, whether that is for ourselves or for others, actually we have let go of grasping. There is no grasping present when metta is present. Okay, so now we come to the final dialogue, which so the first half, in a way, we've looked at already, where the perceiver says, "What can I use to cross the ocean?" And the Buddha says, "Nothingness," and that looks a bit kind of like, but we've already unpacked that, so we don't need to go there. So what happens then with the perceiver is he starts getting really interested about the state of awakening, and he just says, and he's just saying, well, what is nirvana? I just love this. He has to ask twice, because, like, the Buddha answers and he doesn't really get it, and so he asks again. He says, "Please explain this to me clearly, sir. You, a wise man, know precisely the way these things work. Has the man disappeared? Does he simply not exist? Or is he in some state of perpetual well-being?" So what he's saying is, like, what is it to be an awakened being? And he doesn't understand the first answer, which is understandable, because I don't either. And then he asks again, using the categories that we have, existing or not existing. And, thinking, I think when I don't think about it, I do think of enlightenment as just like a perpetual state of well-being, where everything's somehow fine. And he said, and then the Buddha says, when a person has gone out, then there is nothing by which you can measure them. That by which they can be talked about is no longer there for them. You cannot say that they do not exist. When all ways of being, all phenomena are removed, then all ways of description have also been removed. So to me, there's something that is being communicated there about the mysteriousness of awakening, where it's like, it's out, we've only got categories of existing and not existing, and it doesn't fit those categories. And we sort of flop between them. And what I love about this is that I don't understand it. I think when I first got to these dialogues, I'd read that bit and I'd just be like, I don't understand that, it does not compute, and I'd think it was boring, and then I'd go to the next one that I could sort of understand more. Whereas now I think I read it more like perfection of wisdom, where it's like I read it and my brain just starts falling over. It's like it just doesn't function in those categories, and everything just starts going, I don't understand. And what that does more is opens me into a sense of just the mysteriousness. Nothing by which you can measure a Buddha. So this is measure. So that word is meter, which is like meter, like a measure, a meter in English. So that's a measure. So then we've got a meter or a mida, the measureless Buddha, the measureless Buddha. Measureless light, measureless life. So we can approach it mythically by looking at Amida, or looking at the Buddha beyond space and time, that is always present wherever we are. Or we can look at it just as a mystery, the way to the beyond. I mean, in a way, just the title, The Way to the Beyond, it is beyond my rational mind. It is beyond my categories. It is beyond what I can conceptualize as the potential for consciousness. So this whole chapter, it's showing us, it's showing me a path I can follow to an end I cannot conceive. Okay, so thanks very much, everyone. So, same as yesterday.